I had some pretty high expectations for God of War Ragnarok. I've been a God of War fan for a long time and played through every single one of the games, and throughout them all, God of War was my favorite of the series when it came out. But God of War spent a lot of time building things up. So, does Ragnarok deliver on what was built up? Well, I'm very pleased to announce God of War Ragnarok is awesome. It blew almost all my expectations right out of the water. One of the reasons this review took me so long was I legitimately wanted to 100% the entire game, and doing that took me over 50 hours of playtime, which I enjoyed nearly every single minute of. The gameplay is a ton of fun. Pretty much everything you could do in the last game returns here, plus some new mechanics. You can now charge up your weapons for elemental bonuses, you can now use environmental attacks and jumping slam attacks, you get to use both the Leviathan Axe and the Blades of Chaos for nearly the entire game, and you also get a new weapon type eventually. I won't spoil what it is, but once I got the hang of it, I loved using it just as much, if not more, than the other two. Even the shield has been expanded upon. You can now obtain multiple shields, which you can upgrade and switch between, and then they can be customized with different shield ronds. In the last game, enemy attacks would sometimes have yellow circles indicating they could be parried, or red circles indicating they could be dodged. This game has both of those, but also introduces a third circle, the blue circle attacks, which must be interrupted using a shield bash attack. It's a good addition. The game also has a much better enchantment system than the last one. In God of War, you had to equip enchantments into whatever armor you were currently wearing, and constantly re-equip them anytime you changed your armor. This time, enchantments have their own separate section, and it's much more convenient. A very common complaint about the last game was lack of enemy and boss variety. Well, this game fixes that. Nearly every single enemy type from the last game returns, along with several types of human enemies, Einherjar, Light Elves, Grimm, Nokken, Gulons, Phantoms, and dragons. Yes, multiple types of dragons appear as enemies and bosses in this game. But it's not just the enemies who have added variety. There are actually multiple fighting companions and a newly playable character in this game. And it's honestly a ton of fun playing with the new moveset. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I do have some complaints though. First, the lock-on system was pretty unreliable. It would sometimes refuse to lock on to the enemy I was going for, or it would suddenly change to a different enemy during a crucial moment and refuse to go back on the enemy I wanted. Second, I'm pretty sure in God of War, so long as you press the block button right after a yellow circle appeared, you could execute a successful parry. But in this game, that doesn't seem to be the case. Even after a yellow circle appears, you still have to be careful not to block too quickly. You seem to have to wait until you can visually tell that the attack is just about to land, and so I guess the circle is more of a, hey, get ready to block prompt, rather than a block now prompt. And I really didn't like that. It resulted in me more often just trying to dodge attacks rather than parry, whereas in the last game, I made a habit of parrying. Now, let's talk about how the game looks. It's pretty great. The graphics are excellent, we get to travel to all 9 realms, and each one looks and feels distinct. There are even little creatures in the realms that are just there for aesthetics. They didn't have to do that, but they did it anyway. I also really appreciate that we can travel to any area from any gateway this time, instead of having to go all the way back to the temple every single time like before. Also, 4 of the realms have plenty of open-world exploration, side missions, and collectibles. Vanaheim especially, I was pretty shocked by how much that realm had. Unfortunately, one realm that has been significantly downgraded is Niflheim. Remember how in the last game it was basically a creative challenge gauntlet? Well, now it's just one room. Yeah, literally, it's one room. And not a useful room either. It's literally a practice room where you gain no XP. This honestly could have just been another Muspelheim challenge. At the end of the game, you do unlock one other area, but there really isn't much to it. I also thought from the trailer that there might be NPCs walking around in the realms as you explore, but no such luck. Also, what's a bit annoying is how often your companions will outright tell you the answers to puzzles when you've literally just started looking at them. I hate that. What's the point of a puzzle if someone else is just going to immediately tell me the answer? Also, something that actually infuriated me was in Midgard. When I was trying to explore the open world in Midgard, my companion was constantly pestering me to get back to the main story. I swear, every few minutes I was hearing, hey, when are you going to continue the plot? When are you going to continue the plot? This isn't the plot is over there. Get back to the plot. When are you going to continue the plot? Shut up. Let me play the game my way. Why did you even put an open world here if you're gonna get mad at me for exploring it? The game also has several side quests, which is greatly appreciated. I love open world side quests, and most of them here are very well done. But then there's one weird one where the task is literally, hey, see that deer? Tell it to go home. Great, now go do that 3 more times. I'm dead serious. That's an entire mission, and the deer aren't even hidden or hard to get to. They're just out in the open, and I literally found all 4 of them by accident while doing other things. I really feel like something more could have been done with that mission. Like, since each deer represents a different season, why not have, like, a tiny trail of snow you can come across that leads you in the right direction to where the Stag of Winter is, and when you reach the area, you have to solve a puzzle or fight enemies to get to the stag. Just something. Anything. But that's just one mission, and there are plenty of others that don't have this issue. The game also still has hidden bosses, which is another thing I love. Personally, I don't think they're quite as good as the Valkyries, but they're still good, and they tie into a lesser-known Norse weapon story that I always thought was really cool. Now, let's talk about what we're all here for, the story. It's fantastic. The characters are perfectly acted and developed all around, especially Kratos and Atreus, which is great, they're the main characters. One thing I truly love about this story is that it legitimately works as a sequel, continuing the story and building on character development from the last game, instead of just doing stuff all over again like bad sequels do. In the last game, Kratos was vague about his past. Now, he openly discusses it and answers questions honestly. In the last game, he was distant towards pretty much everyone. Now, he refers to his allies as his friends, and even calls Mimir his brother at one point. In the last game, he was too hard on his son. Now, he's much more patient with him, listens to him, and sometimes even lets him take charge. He takes his son seriously. The dynamic between Kratos and Atreus in this game truly feels like it has grown, and both of them have learned from their mistakes. Atreus, you see how much he loves and cares about his father. You see how much Kratos loves his son and wants a better life for him. There's still some conflict between them, but it's not for petty reasons. You get why each of them are doing what they're doing. Kratos doesn't want his son to go to war because he doesn't want him to end up like he did. But Atreus knows that Ragnarok is inevitable and wants to lead it towards a better outcome instead of sitting back and doing nothing. These are both understandable motivations. I was also surprised by the amount of development some of the Aesir got in this game, especially Thor. When I was getting near the end of the game, I was actually thinking, oh man, I actually don't want to kill this guy anymore. How is this going to play out? The game also has some incredible set-piece moments in Alfheim, Vanaheim, Muspelheim, and Helheim, which was my personal favorite. There are still a few small issues, though. The segment where Atreus meets Angrboda does go on for a bit too long. Most of it is literally just fetching ingredients for her, and after about an hour of that, I was getting frustrated. They do have cute chemistry, though, and it does end with a really great boss battle, which I won't spoil. Oh, and if you're one of the people who's upset because Angrboda's design doesn't really feel quite authentic to Norse culture, I get where you're coming from. I really do. But let's keep in mind, guys, this is also a game where Mimir is Scottish, Ratatoskr is polite, Svartalfheim is sunny, Loki is the son of a Greek god, and Hraesvelgr is the queen of Helheim. Yes, really, I did not make that up. So, if you start playing a God of War game and expect it to be mythically accurate, you're gonna have a bad time.
You're gonna have a bad time.
Another issue, though, is how generous the game sometimes is with checkpoints. For example, during the second big battle with Thor, I was really into it. There was a ton going on, and I got so close to beating him on the first try, but I ended up failing and dying. But then, instead of having to redo the fight from the beginning, I got to start again with Thor at half health and me with full health. It honestly didn't feel fair. It kinda made it too easy, and it really drained the excitement out of the fight. Then the final boss felt a bit too easy also, but that one's probably my own fault for doing literally all of the side stuff before fighting him. I may have made myself a little bit too powerful. Fortunately, though, the game has not one, but two different end-level hidden bosses, which were much more challenging, and the overall boss fights in this game are really good. My remaining problems with the game all kind of involve the final segments of it, and it would be very hard to discuss these without spoiling the story, which I don't want to do here, so what I'm going to do is I'll make a second video purely for discussing spoilers and link it at the end of this one. But for now, without giving too much away, let's just say I was a bit let down by the final battle. I mean, it's really good and all, but I was hoping it would go on much longer and have more epic moments. Some of the earlier set pieces felt a little cooler than the final set piece. It didn't quite reach the epicness that I was going for. There was also one big thing that we spent a lot of time building up for the final battle, but then it actually kind of ended up being useless in the final battle. The worst part of it was the severe lack of Aesir battles, and really Aesir altogether. There's actually one Norse god who is brought up several times in the story, and we even pass by his bedroom a few times, yet he never appears throughout the entire game. In the end, even though it was still good, it just didn't feel quite enough to be worthy of the title of Ragnarok. When I think of Ragnarok, I think of a no-holes-barred, all nuts-to-butts craziness. And this game had a cool final battle, but it wasn't quite the level I associate Ragnarok with. I don't know. Maybe my expectations are too high. Do you disagree with me? I'm curious what other people thought about that. But even with those nitpicks, God of War Ragnarok is still a wonderful game that gives you more than your money's worth. When I hit that 100% completion, I felt good, but also sad, because even after over 50 hours of playtime, I wanted to play more. This is a solid 9 out of 10. Highly recommend it. Way to go, Santa Monica. I can't wait to see what the next game holds.